Hello, everybody. This is Bob Jackson from Walt Disney World's Port Orleans Riverside Resort, giving a big shout-out to all his friends listening to the WDW Today podcast. I perform Wednesday through Saturday, and the show starts at 8:30 there at Port Orleans Riverside. Come on out. We'll be saving you a seat.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, October 19th, 2009, and this is episode 632 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
Fireflies, up here.
Tough to be a bug.
Tough to be a bug.
Very good. Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Mike, let me get this straight. I was listening to Mouse World Radio. I want to make sure I have this exactly correct, and I want you to clarify. It's a... Oh, man, I messed up the line.
Oh.
That was just
sorry.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Sorry. That was pretty funny, Matt.
Swing and a miss. So anyway, how are you, Mike?
No, I was better until you came up
A
with
little
that.
disconcerted right now, apparently.
Also joining us on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of The Initial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Len.
How's it going, Matt?
Not so good, but getting better. Just moving on.
Just wish we wouldn't have had a cough syrup before.
That's right.
Saw the funniest movie last night. Saw Zombieland.
Is it good?
So funny. Yeah.
I gotta check it out.
I'm a big Bill Murray fan. So anyway, go ahead.
And also joining us on today's show is Sean Slater, the author of the Disney Sean blog, which of course you can find at disneysean.blogspot.com. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Thanks. Glad to be here. And since you're not feeling so well, can I just use your line and say that I'm outstanding?
Nice.
Very good.
Thank you.
On today's show, we brought Sean on. If you don't recall, Sean was the guy, basically, he's the guy we talked about the dolphin episode, which is actually very interesting. We worked on a project. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go check it out. And that was a little while ago, about a month or two ago. But we brought Sean back on because in addition to Sean's many, many talents, along the line, he actually worked for Walt Disney Imagineering, where he helped develop some storylines. And, with Disney, everything has to have a story. I'm sure the restrooms have some sort of a story to them. I'm not sure what they might be, but I'm sure they're built in somewhere. And today, we're actually going to be talking about the Ye Olde Christmas Shop in Liberty Square, because, Sean, you developed the whole story for this entire area. And I know that, between, Expedition Everest and Splash Mountain and Pirates and everything, we're always, we're always talking about the shops. But, what's interesting is that, because, again, this really goes back to the attention to detail that Disney has with everything. They really do put a storyline to everything here, and this is a classic example of that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project as you were brought onto it?
That's right. At least we try to put a story to everything. It doesn't always work out. But yeah, we like to say that everything starts with a story. In the case of this particular project, it actually started with a need. If anyone remembers, the Christmas shop used to be in Fantasyland. It was right behind the castle in the area that's now Sir Mickey's.
That's right. I remember.
Yep. Yeah, it was the Christmas shop on one half, and the other half was a store called the Aristocats.
And just be right on the right as you come under the castle, right, Sean? Right on the right.
Right.
Yep.
Well, back in, I guess it was the mid-'90s, when they redid that area as Sir Mickey's, all the Christmas stuff came out, and merchandising decided, but we still need a permanent home somewhere in the Magic Kingdom where guests can get Christmas items year-round. So they decided on Liberty Square, and everything just kind of landed there. And it sat there in that block of shops across from the Hall of Presidents for a couple of years before there was actually money to go in and do it right. So this was a case of where it started with the need. They needed a new shop that would offer Christmas items year-round. They wanted to go in and do it right. So they said, okay, well, here you go, Walt Disney Imagineering. Here's some money. Give us a Christmas shop. Now, what's interesting about this project that actually happens with a lot of the smaller things like this is once the project turns on and the money's available, everybody is turned on at the same time. But nobody else can do anything until the writer's done his job, or her.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of pressure. Everybody's knocking on my door. Hey, you got that yet? You got that yet? Come on, we have to buy props. We have to turn the architects on. Come on, what's happening?
So when they gave you this idea, this project rather, we're going to have a shop in Liberty Square, and and it's going to have a Christmas theme. What was your initial thoughts? I mean, what kind of what really came to mind when the project was brought to you?
Well, it was initially just presented to me saying, okay, we need a simple story. It's a Christmas store in colonial America. So beyond that, I didn't have any direct thoughts except let me start doing some research. Unfortunately, the first thing that I pulled up was the fact that during colonial days, Christmas wasn't really celebrated in the colonies. Thought, well, here's a problem.
Scopo really wasn't into the holiday back then.
That's right. It was So isn't our notion of Christmas pretty much a Victorian era construct?
We were doing Festivus back then.
Yeah. Festivus, right. For the rest some sort of pagan thing. It was some sort of Mithraism. Yeah, anyway.
No, I think there was a group of Germans, like in Pennsylvania, in that area, who were still celebrating some of the old traditional things. But for the most part, many of the people who had come and settled in the colonies were fleeing religious persecution. They were fleeing all of the constraints of the church. And with that, they left behind a lot of those traditions. So it really wasn't until after the country was formed, after they had their freedoms and they could celebrate however they wanted, that a lot of the things that they liked started to come back.
Oh, that's funny.
So I thought, okay, well, this could be a problem. But then I went back to what was really the original design intent of Liberty Square in Frontierland, which is as you go from the Haunted Mansion around toward Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, you actually pass through time and across the country.
Yep.
The Haunted Mansion is 1600s, upstate New York on the Hudson River Valley. Mm-hmm. You get down to the area kind of between the Columbia Harbor House and the Hall of Presidents. That's colonial America, pre-Revolutionary War. The Hall of Presidents itself represents the Constitutional Convention. In fact, the address on the building is 1787. 1787 was the year that the Constitution was signed. So I thought, okay, following this logic, the Christmas shop is across the street. So, hey, New Nation, Christmas time. So we decided, okay, the shop will be the citizens of Liberty Square celebrating Christmas, or one of the first Christmases in the New World, or in their new nation, the United States of America. So that all worked. Now, one other thing that I really wanted to do with this story was maintain the separate identities of the shops. Another little way back for you is, if you recall, before it was the Christmas shop, that block was 3 separate shops. The little spot closest to the Castle Hub was a perfumery.
Oh, I don't remember that.
In the middle, it was an antique store. I think, Ye Olde Antiques or One of a Kind Antiques, something like that.
Also known as Scopa's Garage Sale, but go ahead.
The show is just turning into the Scopa jokes, but yes, please continue.
Sorry, Mike. And then the shop closest to the Liberty Tree was a silversmith shop that used to have a really fun reference on the sign, J. Tremaine Proprietor.
Johnny Tremaine.
He was a silversmith.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, it's all coming back to me when I was 12 years old.
Right.
I don't get the
Last
joke.
week.
Johnny Tremaine?
No.
It's
You
a
never read
film.
Johnny Tremaine as a kid?
Yeah, it's a book too.
No, what was it?
Oh, it was a fantastic book. It was he was mutilated, and he was like a 18th century badass. It was pretty good.
And a great Disney movie, 1957.
Was it really?
You'll have to rent it. Yeah, we have it on DVD and actually watch it every year at 4th of July. I know that sounds really Disney geeky, but there it is. So it was originally 3 separate shops, and essentially we were turning it into one enormous Christmas emporium. But I thought, well, in doing so, we can at least try to maintain the identity of smaller shops so that Liberty Square still keeps some of its individual character. So I wrote this story, which is essentially about 3 different entities. So the first part, and actually, if you like, I'll quote right from the story that was written.
Sure.
Cool. It says, Ye Olde Christmas Shop is actually a series of buildings, storefronts with second-story residences, brimming with busy craftspeople preparing for the upcoming festivities. Each shop has its own purpose, and thereby its own character. More formal in nature, the music teacher's shop is set with recorders, mandolins, and fiddles, perhaps readied for playing at a ball in honor of Twelfth Night on January 6th. The music on the sheets and meeting the ear is that of Watt's beloved Joy to the World and the traditional English favorites The Holly and the Ivy and I Saw Three Ships. Next door is a woodcarver's shop, casual and more rough-hewn. The tools of the trade sit amidst curled shavings of pine and cherry. In the corner is a lovingly crafted hobby horse, and decorative holiday ornaments are all around. Nearest the Liberty Tree is the quaint home of a family of Pennsylvania Germans, folk artists and craftsmen whose hospitality is evident in the beautiful items they offer for sale and in the pot of hot cider they keep on the stove. They're always ready to welcome townsfolk and travelers alike, spreading wishes of good cheer.
So now the music store, is that the same building that has the Ichabod Crane reference over there?
Yes. So that's the one that was originally the perfumery.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it looks more, I guess, more Victorian, a little bit more ornate. The shingle hanging out front says Music and Voice Lessons, Ichabod Crane Instructor. So a little reference to Sleepy Hollow.
Nice.
Which fits in the period. The Sleepy Hollow refreshments right across the way. Plus, if you recall from the film, he was a teacher, and he would teach the ladies of the town to sing in exchange for them cooking for him.
Huh.
So that's
not a bad racket to start up.
Right?
Yeah, I think I'll start something. Oh, it's got legs.
That's nice.
Right. And then the middle one, the woodcarver shop. And then on the end, the family home, which, another little Disney reference. On the outside of the door going into that house is a plaque with the family name. And the name is listed as Keppel. Well, Keppel sounded like an appropriately German name, so it worked for me. But actually, the name Keppel was Walt Disney's grandfather.
Yeah.
It's his grandfather's name.
Nice.
So a little hidden Disney reference in there. But looking
He's a nice
through
guy, too.
Yeah, you knew him, did you? You guys hung out?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So in the story, you hear different things that, since everything starts with the story, once that storyline is approved, I'm done. I
Really?
turn it over, and the art director takes it, the props people take it, the interiors people, and I move on to the 15 other projects on my plate. So, and then maybe a year later, go back and the shop's open. I'm like, hey, okay,
Yeah, that worked
did
out.
it work? What took, what didn't?
Yeah.
So you try to influence it as much as you possibly can by putting things in there.
So now for instance, the reference to Ichabod Crane, obviously there's the Sleepy Hollow little counter service location across the street from it over there. Was that there at the time?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so was that a coincidence, or did it kind of play into what you were doing?
No, it played completely in.
Okay, so you were well aware of that, and
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was well aware that was there, and wanted to put another little reference in there. Being a Disney fan myself, I like working Disney elements into the stories wherever I can. So I think that's just an extra fun layer for our guests to discover as they're walking through the park.
Now, call me immature, but if the name of the rest of the store was Ye Olde Christmas Shop, I would be hard pressed not to name everything inside the store Ye Olde something, or add ease to everything. Just
Ye Oldie. Yeah.
Ye Olde. That's right.
Yeah.
Ye Olde register. Ye Olde receipts. Ye Olde register.
All right.
Ye oldie but goodie.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to do any of that. So.
No.
So it seems like they kind of stuck a lot to your story. I mean, that was really kept in. It wasn't like somebody took your story and goes, we'll just throw some stuff in there and call it even. They actually did stick with it.
Yeah, as you walk through the shop, you can see a lot of the details from that story. Now, there are a few things, like I mentioned in the family home about hot cider on the stove.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the family home is what used to be the silversmith shop, and there actually used to be kind of a stove there with a big pot on it. It was like they were, heating up the silver, melting it down to make things. They ended up removing that to put more merchandise display space when they converted the shop. So, the hot pot of cider didn't make it.
Oh.
But the music is usually there. Sometimes they'll get crafty and just sort of play the latest CD that they're selling in the shop, Disney Christmas songs. But sometimes you'll go through and actually hear the background music from the period, which is nice.
Let me ask you this, Sean. I mean, obviously, the shop is still there. it's, how does it feel? I mean, I guess, all these years later that you walk by it, and really it hasn't changed much, if at all, since they redid the stores there with your idea. I mean, what kind of a reaction do you personally get? What kind of I imagine it's got to be very gratifying to know that it's still there. It's still pretty much to the letter of what you had mentioned, with the exception of the poor cider pot, which didn't make it. But I mean, tell us a little bit about what that feels like. I mean, I know that. I mean, if there was a rivet that I contributed to putting over there, Lord knows every time we walk by it, I will point out, Newell, look, that's my rivet over there.
Yeah, I think I drive my family crazy with it. But no, I mean, of course, there's an incredible sense of pride in knowing that something that I was a part of is now part of Walt Disney World. It's that place that I grew up with, that I was always in awe of and dreamed about working there. And then I had that opportunity and got to actually contribute something to it. So there's a great sense of pride and accomplishment in that. There's also, every time I walk by, it reminds me of the tremendous teamwork that happens within Walt Disney Imagineering and really within the entire Walt Disney Company. Just the fact that I didn't do it alone.
Right.
I wrote this story based on the concept that other people had. Okay, we want to have Christmas things in Liberty Square, but that was one little piece of the puzzle, and then it moved on to everyone else. Probably one of the best days on this entire project was the first day that I walked into the shop and saw how everybody else had interpreted what I had written, which is really cool. I think my favorite detail in the entire store is in the woodcarver's shop in the middle. What we call the cash wrap, sort of the register area, is built up to look like his workbench. There are tools there. There, what do you call them? The logs. They call them bolts. Or am I making that up?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know the word either.
So, of course, Leah, leave it to the writer to be stumped.
For a word.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it happens to me all the time. That's what dictionary.com's for, right? But I just love that little detail. Something that isn't specifically called out in the story, just that it's a woodcarver's shop, but that they went and took it to that level of design. I really love that.
We'll let you go on this here, Sean. With this idea that you came up with that we see here, was that your first idea, or were you mulling about some other ideas in your mind in terms of possibilities for the shops as well?
Actually, this was the first one. This was the first and only idea for this particular location.
You're glad it worked, right? Right. Woo, they took it. Woo.
Well, and that certainly doesn't always happen. I've been part of many projects where you're on the 15th iteration and you're like, really? I have to do it again?
All right. Pinatas, okay? Pinatas that go crazy, all right?
Hey, Matt, I have something I'd like to ask Sean.
Yes.
Sean, was there ever any consideration to taking your story and posting it somewhere, like right outside the shop, for guests to read and maybe, as they read it, say, oh, when I go in, I'm going to have to look for that? Was there any consideration for that?
Actually, no, there wasn't. And it's interesting because it's a question that I get asked a lot, which is, doesn't it bother you that all the work goes into these stories and no one ever sees them?
Yes.
No one ever knows them. But, it really doesn't bother me because the point of a visit to a Disney park is not really to read, but to be part of the experience. To have that story unfold all around you and for you to be part of it. So, it's one of the things where, sure, I would love for the stories to be out there at some point, to be known. It's one of the reasons that I do my blog, so that some of the backstories can really get out there for the people who really want to know. But for the park guest experience, you really want them to be able to just go in there and disappear into this immersive environment that helps them feel like they are in the early years of America at Christmas time.
Right. I agree. I guess the thing is that what sets Disney theme parks apart from Busch Gardens, Universal Studios, is that there are always stories behind everything, and it's too bad that they don't, that this type of effort is not acknowledged. So just a point.
Well, sure. No, I appreciate that, Mike. But certainly, you know that I think I don't know if I can speak for all of my fellow writers and Imagineers out there, but we get tremendous acknowledgement just by going and visiting the parks and watching people walk through and enjoy it and appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think, to your credit, Sean, I think when it comes with the stories, I think there's a certain level of you're suspending your disbelief. You know what I mean? And when you go into, I think to credit the work that you've done, if you walk into the store, no one ever goes, "What's up with the store?" Come on, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like to give you a better example, but I think we've all complained about the theme or lack thereof in Dinoland USA. Because I don't think it's as it doesn't convey, obviously, at least to myself. I don't quite see it that way, but
that's because I just need to take you there.
That must be it. Show you what it is. Yeah, okay.
Dinoland actually has an incredibly rich backstory.
Okay, just let me know how many drinks we have to have before that happens. But
good luck, bro.
Is that what the interns told you before they left? All right.
No, but seriously, it's thank you for sharing the story, Sean. Like Scopa says, I think it really is. I'm sure most people don't know about it. So certainly, we didn't know about it before. The rich story there that they have over there, and certainly, it's great that you were able to share that with us.
It's my pleasure.
And
thanks for having me on. Even though it's Halloween time, always happy to talk about Christmas.
That's right. In the true sense of Disney, we're talking about Christmas in October. Right. And of course, if you enjoy what you've heard here with Sean, definitely check out his blog, DisneySean.blogspot.com. We'll have a link in the show notes for it. It's a very good read. Lots of interesting information all about Walt Disney World in there. Lots of explaining a lot of the hidden details there. It's really a great read and something that I know that many of us here on the show, we stop and check out every morning before we go to work. So very nice, Sean, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that'll do it for us today. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at WDWtoday.com. Don't forget also that this Sunday is our next live show. That's right, this Sunday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. All the details for our next live show are going to be at WDWtoday.com. That's going to be on October 25th, so check that out. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and Sean Slater, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.